how does Nintendo avoid, for the most part, day one jank on their releases? How do you think they will maintain this quality for the technical demands of their next generation? Well, this is an interesting question, isn't it? Because typically they do produce some really good stuff that just works well on day one, but maybe it's because they're working with more third-party studios, but there are issues that are starting to crop in even into first-party releases now. John, I guess there's two parts to this question. How do they avoid, for the most part, day one jank, and are the standards slipping?
I don't actually really have an answer to how they do it. I assume it's just very, very thorough testing and a lot of care put into it. They're spending more money and time ensuring that the games are as polished as they can be, and they're making solid technical decisions both early and late in the project to sort of meet those goals. They always kind of keep themselves constrained just enough to sort of deliver something reasonable. They're not reaching for the stars. I'd say the closest they have to a game that has a bit of jank and some issues is the recent Zelda games. And I think it's pretty impressive that they shipped as polished as they did, considering how ambitious they are in terms of like they're trying to do physics interactions and like very dynamic things that most games don't attempt these days. And yet they're still pretty polished overall,
Right.
with minimal jank. For that style of game, the jank is acceptable. But in terms of slipping, I think when it comes to third party partners that they're working with to develop games, they've traditionally done very well. Like you look at what happened with, say, like Mercury Steam, how they managed to whip them into making like Metroid Dread, like a really smooth, beautiful 60 FPS game when that was a developer known for, like, you remember the Castlevania, the first one, Lords of Shadow, they did on the PS3 and 360. That was pretty much a 25 FPS game at best. It was kind of a mess on those machines. That was their background, bad performance under Konami. Nintendo clearly helped them. But then you look at stuff like that recent Mario and Luigi thing,
Brothership.
Which it's not good. It's really not good. Acquire did the heavy lifting on that, but the technical performance is bad. I would say there's not too many of those examples right now, but it definitely does seem to happen once in a while. And that is a bit of a bummer.
I think the avoiding, for the most part, the jank is simply that they have a lot of time to polish. I think it's really that simple. And I think it's a crucial part of development that they're investing in and a lot of people aren't. There does, we've talked about it at length in directs where there just seems to be a case of we've run out of time, we need to ship it. Let's get it out the door.
That's really interesting and important, Rich, because this has allowed Nintendo to take a different approach. Like, let's say you look at like a typical big AAA Western game from a lot of companies, not all, but there's a decent amount of times where a game comes out, full price, the launch version is quite broken. And then over the next however many months, they polish it up. But by then, it has this reputation, and then the price drops and you're getting like sales for like 20 or $30. And then people might consider it, but all of this stuff sort of muddies the waters. People don't want to spend the full price on day one because of the bugs, and then it creates this bad reputation, and then it's on sale, and then any sales that happen after that point tend to be at a lower price. Nintendo ensures that when they release their games, the quality is high enough that buyers generally feel very comfortable and confident in buying on day one. And this is furthered by the fact that they don't really do many price drops or sales. So they've managed to maintain the sort of like value proposition for their software in a way where it's like, it's going to be good on day one, usually. And you can't just say, well, I'll just wait, 3 months and get it on sale, because that ain't happening. And so they've kind of built a different relationship with their customer than a lot of these other big developers have, that makes it more, I guess, it sort of pays off in that regard. So to me, it kind of says that extra time and money they spend on ensuring that their stuff is polished is absolutely worth it. And it's built that relationship over the years that gamers have with Nintendo that they don't have with a lot of these other publishers that are known for these problems. And that's with the rising costs of game development. This really has to change. I think if companies need to build new relationships with the audience, be like, hey, we can do really polished, complete games right away.
Yeah. So Alex, in the PC space, you live in a dark and dank world where if a game comes along and it's actually a polished experience on day one, it's like a revelation.
Yeah.
It's like God rays piercing through the dark
Yeah, like
clouds.
with Veilguard, a game where I was like, on the game, I'm like, I don't like Dragon Age anyways that much. But then I was like, oh, but it doesn't run like junk. I get all super excited about it and I make a glowing video. Yeah, it's completely different landscape. Just the standards and the expectations. Well, I don't even know about expectations. I don't know. I feel like PC gamers can be sometimes a lot more demanding in some aspects. So yeah, it's really about the standards of publishing are way different on PC. It's always kind of the redheaded stepchild, or I think it was once described, like they keep it on, like they keep the PC version on CPR until like the last couple weeks when they resuscitate it. I like that. Yeah. But yeah, completely different. I wish we got the equivalent of Mario polish. The equivalent of Mario polish on PC is probably like an id game, like Doom Eternal.
Right.
Doom.
Yeah.
That's like really about it, usually.
Well, you've got Indiana Jones coming up next.
That'll probably be great, I imagine. I hope. I hope.
It would probably be acceptable in terms of polish. Who knows?